Now let me tell you just for a moment a little bit about me. I graduated from Vanderbilt University undergraduate. I went to Vanderbilt Law School. I clerked for the Tennessee Supreme Court. And then I worked for several years in Nashville. And then Jim Hall pulled me out and told me I had to come work in Dad's campaign. And I worked in Dad's campaign, and then I figured out after that, ironically, that it's kind of hard to practice law in the capital city of the state of Tennessee, where your dad is the governor, he appoints all the judges, because, you know, the judges all kind of react to that. So that was a little bit difficult for me. So I got an opportunity to go to Jackson, Tennessee, and buy a business. And I went down there and I bought that business. And I've been down there for the last 17 years. I've raised 2 kids. I've been very, very well married, let me assure you. I married, as my dad says, I married well over my head. And he reminds me of that all the time. And I've had a good career, but I'm worried about my children's future. And I'm seeing the situation where George Bush, Dick Cheney, Karl Rove did not get us in this situation, this awful situation that we're in all by themselves. They got there with people like Lamar Alexander. They got there with some heavy lifting out of him. He wants to preach moderation, but he wants to practice partisan politics. He's voted with this administration over 92% of the time. In 2 years of his service, he's voted with them 98% of the time. When they wanted a blank check to go to Iraq, he wrote it. When they passed those upside-down budgets, Lamar okayed them. When they refused to raise the minimum wage for 10 years, Mr. Alexander stood right with them. And they failed to do anything to solve our immigration crisis. He has just simply walked away. But you know what really makes me mad about this situation, or angry I should say, is this is not the Mr. Alexander that I remember. This is not the person that I knew as a teenager. I've known him since I was 12 years old. And I'm getting older now, so that's a long time. But he and my father and John Wilder all started out together in politics. And I've never, ever seen the kind of irresponsibility that you see coming out of Washington, D.C. today. Washington, I think, has changed Mr. Alexander. And I think it's changed him for the worse. And I don't think it serves us well. And at times like this, I really think we need private citizens who will participate in government, and we need leaders who've not forgotten how to balance a budget or worry about paying our bills. Mr. Alexander's been in Washington just simply too long. Now, the good thing is, and I'm delighted to see this crowd out here, is the good thing is we can make a change there. And it's people like you who can make that change and make a change not only for my children's future, but your children's future and our grandchildren's future. And we've got to do that. I think our first responsibility is to get out of Iraq. I think we got to get out of Iraq. I think it's time for our troops to come home. George Bush and Mr. Alexander seem to think we can stay there forever. They want a military surge to carry us forward. At some point in time, we've got to admit, and this is very appropriate on Veterans Day, but we've got to admit that our military men and women have done their job, and now it's time for the Iraqis to step up and do their job. Our veterans, our military people cannot continue to carry this load without the Iraqis getting in there and taking charge and making this happen. And on Veterans Day, and let me ask for another round of applause for Veterans Day, because they've been there for us, and they've made our country what it is. Nor can I think we really protect ourselves from threats like Al-Qaeda if we're staying in Iraq, because we're spending so much time and effort there. I'm not sure that we're addressing what we really need to do with our ports and with our immigration. It's really dangerous, in my opinion, how this crew in Washington has stretched our military so thin. I am truthfully ashamed to hear the stories that come out of Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, D.C. about how our military people are being treated. If we're going to ask our young men and women to come and work and serve our country, then we need to take care of them. And we need to take care of them. From the very minute they come home. Second, I think we've got to bring our spending under control. The federal budget has completely exploded over the last 7 years. And we've all heard about the Alaska Bridge to nowhere. But Lamar sits on the Appropriation Committee that controls government spending. He should tell us how our government has gone from having $1 billion surplus to a situation where we're spending multiple billions of dollars in debt. He ought to explain that. And you know what? I don't think he can, because I don't think he gets it. And it's not right. Third, we've got to rein in the big oil companies. Their profits have been enormous for years. There's, without absolutely any questions been asked. We're all going out and filling up our cars, and we're paying $3 a gallon. We all know that they're not building any more refineries. They're not doing anything else to build any kind of new energy sources. It's just enormous profits that they've gotten over the last 7 years with George Bush and Dick Cheney in office. And the truth is, whether it's energy or healthcare, immigration or jobs, we just need, I think, some old-fashioned common sense. I think I've got that. And I think I've been raised in a way that I know what to do. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go to Washington, and I'm going to do the right thing. And I'm going to represent Tennessee values. I'm not going to represent corporation values. I'm going to represent the people who are in this room. And I get that from my dad, and I'm proud of that. He's led me well, and he's taught me, I think, the right value system, and that's where I'm headed. And I'm going to do that, and with y'all's help, I can pull that together, but I've got to have y'all's help. You know, I'm running against an incumbent who's going to have a ton of money and a lot of assets and a lot of name recognition, and he's going to be a tough guy to run against. But I believe, with the help of the people I've got in this room, that I can pull that off. And I've got to have you people helping me, pushing, and I know I will. So, now,